All right, guys, I checked my audio. Everything's going well. So I'm going to back up a teeny bit to the beginning of this section again, that I was in the middle of a paragraph. Henry and the other men from the 320th Barrage Balloon Battalion were the first and only black combat unit in the whole Normandy beach invasion. Their mission had been to come ashore once the beach was mostly secure and install big, gray, blimp-shaped barrage balloons. Once up, the balloons were supposed to protect all the soldiers and support staff coming up off the beach into Normandy from enemy planes. The steel cables that held the balloons were hard for the planes to see and even harder for them to dodge and could rip off a wing or gum up a propeller. It was unusual for the U.S. Army to give such an important job to a black unit. The highly trained 320th Barrage Balloon Battalion was rare and exceptional, and Henry was proud to be a part of it, which would have been all well and good if the invasion had moved ahead like the generals planned. Omaha Beach was supposed to be in Allied control long before now, but it wasn't, not by a long shot. As soon as the ramp went down on Henry's landing boat, he'd seen that fort a lie. Hundreds of American soldiers still hid behind obstacles that lurked in the water. Men still ran for the shell line, the seawall, the protection of a burning tank under withering machine fire. Big German guns still destroyed landing boats, and mortars carved craters in the sand. The whole Allied attack on Omaha was hopelessly stalled, but that hadn't stopped the United States Army from continuing to deliver new waves of soldiers like Henry and the 320th right on schedule. His unit's balloons had been shot by the Germans for target practice, and the soldiers of the 320th had scrambled to dig in and join the fight, including Henry, which was why he was here now. A mortar shell hit close by, showering the top of Henry's tent with sand. He kept working, carefully extracting the bullet from the soldier's shattered shoulder. He almost tossed the slug away into the sand, then decided to slip it into the soldier's pocket instead. The wounded man might want it later for a souvenir. Henry sprinkled sulfa over the wound and bandaged it up tight. The soldier was going to need a proper operation and soon, but for now he was stable. Henry stuck the empty morphine syringe into the buttonhole on the man's tunic so that the next medic would know how much painkiller he'd given him, and filled out a tag explaining the soldier's injury and what Henry had done about it. Henry slid the soldier sideways out of the tent, laying his head just below the top of the shell line to keep him hidden from the German machine guns, and went off to find his next patient. Henry tried to ignore the fight raging all around him, hauling, crying, moaning men back to his station again and again. As a medic, Henry had been trained to keep his patients talking, in part to help them stay conscious, and in part to distract them from the sometimes nauseating things that he had to do to them. "Where are you from?" was the question that all soldiers ended up asking each other when they first met, even if they were never going to see each other again. Henry, who loved movies, liked to ask everyone what their favorite film was instead. He got a lot of good ones that day: King Kong, The Wizard of Oz, Frankenstein, The Thin Man, Robin Hood, and Gunga Din. All movies Henry had seen again and again in the theater. While he talked movies, Henry extracted bullets, bandaged wounds, sedated shock victims. There was more he wanted to do and more he needed to do for these men, but he only had a few basics, precious things in his medical bags, and the worst possible conditions to use even those. Henry was exhausted, but he kept working. What if he took a 5 minute break, just 5 minutes, and in those 5 minutes a man died who Henry could have saved? How could he live with that on his conscience? Nope, he would keep working until he passed out or was shot dead. Henry guessed it was close to noon by now, but he hadn't even taken a moment to look at his watch. Instead, he dragged in another wounded soldier and sat heaving, trying to catch his breath as he looked the man over for injuries. "Well, I'll be a son of a gun," Henry said. He recognized this man. Of all the medical tents, On all the beaches in all of France, he crawls into mine, Henry said, riffing off a line from one of his favorite movies, Casablanca. The soldier's name was Lieutenant Richard Hoyt. He was a white soldier from Georgia, and he had made Henry's life in boot camp a living hell.